This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello everybody, it is Party Loaded time. It is Wednesday night. We're here on the podcast to chat about video games, and it is a very special night tonight, Wednesday the 20th of September, which happens to be somebody's birthday. Happy birthday, Imogen.
Thanks.
Welcome to the show.
I'm going to throw Ollie under the bus and say it's Ollie's birthday tomorrow, so
It
it's
is.
really double birthday episode.
It is.
Yeah.
We've got a week of birthdays.
Our parents were really bored on New Year's Eve. Hooray!
Wait,
It was my
hang
parents'
on.
wedding
What?
anniversary.
You made that sound like your parents were both together.
Babies.
God.
Yeah.
And in the same breath, I'm going to wish myself a very, very happy unbirthday. And yeah, I'm happy for other reasons. Don't have to have a birthday today. It's all good. I don't feel left out at all. It's fine. But
Look at this loser over
Jam
here.
has given
birthday.
herself a present tonight, and she is sleeping off a heavy week. So we're going to pick things up and run with all the fun video game stuff that we've done this week, of which, surprise, surprise, there's actually been quite a bit of looking at our list tonight. So going from a week where...
Yeah, I was looking today. I was like, oh, I don't really play that many games. Like, I barely feel like I played like anything this week. And then I looked at the week and went, oh, shit. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Look, I've got stuff that I haven't even listed on our bullets as well, which I'll talk about in a future week. But I've been playing a bunch of stuff. So not that I've been getting too distracted from the Destiny 2 ride, because I think that's still going pretty strong for me at least. So how's your progress report on the Destiny, Mimo? How's that all going for you?
Destiny. Great success. I am 263 power / light level / smushing thing together level.
Smush level. Let's just call it smush level.
Smush level.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was, and the reason why I say I don't feel like I played a lot of games, because that was kind of in one session that I went from 250 up to 263, which I think is pretty
That's solid.
sweet. But I do feel like it's slowing down a lot at this stage. Like, my increments used to be like 2 or 3 at a time. Now it's only really 1. So we'll see. I Rat King clan thing, Jam and I jumped on and did a bunch of stuff, and so it's in its final phase, which is Nightfall, which is going to be super difficult to finish Nightfall with 5 minutes left on the clock. Finishing
Yeah.
Nightfall would
So-
be an achievement for me, so
People
we'll
who
see
aren't
about
aware,
that.
what Image is referring to is there is an exotic item, which is a hand cannon called the Rat King. It's just called the Rat King, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And this particular hand cannon has like a quest progression with an item that you pick up called the Rat King's Crew, which requires you to do a whole bunch of activities with somebody else who also has the same item. So, yeah.
Well, it's got evolutionary names. It goes in stages.
Yeah.
Rat King's Crew is one of them.
Yes, yeah, that's the one. So, I think you have to do some scouting missions with somebody who's got the same thing first, and then you do some other stuff. But yeah, you're right. Like, the very, very final step is finishing a Nightfall strike with 5 minutes left on the clock, which, we've jumped in and done a bit of a test run on Nightfall, like yourself and me and Jam, and I am still wondering how
I haven't done Nightfall. You did that without me.
Oh, did I? Okay, I apologise. I
Yep.
thought you were there. I might
I
have
was
been Simo.
obviously super memorable
No,
in that
I
experience.
think it was our other friend Simo. Yeah, look, I've purged it from my mind because I felt so freaking embarrassed when I did it. It was like, yeah, it was bad. It was real bad.
Oh, man.
Nightfall's hard. It's
Jam is the best, though. Jam is like, it's fine. Like, we'll just give it a show and we'll just keep practicing. And in the end, we'll get it. Like, she's super positive. I am not.
Well, look, I'm positive too. I do think it's going to be a practice makes perfect thing, and I do know people that I wouldn't have considered to be, MLG level sort of Destiny 2 players who have done all right with it. But it's pretty intimidating when you first jump in and you actually look at what you have to do.
Get shat on Luke's friends who play Destiny 2.
You know what I mean, though. Like they're not the addicts that you might expect. Yeah.
I mean, the best thing about this particular quest, which I actually quite kind of like, is that it forced me to play competitive Crucible. And Dam and I had a great competitive Crucible match with somebody who carried us nearly the entire game. But he had an exotic sniper rifle, and the power weapons require the reload. So the first thing that he would do is go and reload. And I'm like, Jam, I think he's got a sniper rifle out. And like, maybe if we just muck around in the central area where he has a big view, it'll work. Did it work? Oh my goodness. We drew them into this central area and he just picked them off with headshots left and right.
Nice.
It was amazing. And this is all without communication. I was just like, we'll try this. I also managed to do what is probably the best and coolest thing I'll ever do in a video game. I switched out to Night Stalker, Nightwalker, Voidwalker, whatever the hell, Hunter class.
That's the Arc one, isn't it?
Void-based.
The
Void-based.
one. Yep.
Like I said.
Yep.
And part of that is I have it spec'd out to do the smoke bomb. So what I did was run up and in competitive Crucible, go figure, like the rest of Destiny 2, thing that I'm the best at, stabbing people in the face. Not good at the shoots, but I had more melee kills than anybody else in the game.
Nice.
So I ran up, stabbed somebody in the face, got them down to half elf. Half elf? Half elf.
Top half or bottom half?
I turned them into a half elf, threw down my smoke bomb so I went invisible, ran around the backside of him and stabbed him in the back. And he died. I was like, Jam, did you see it? She's like, no. And I'm like, that was so cool. And I forgot that you could press the button on the PlayStation to record what you did, and I didn't do that. So this is the only proof that happened, but it was cool as shit.
You've been relying on your Overwatch action replays for too long. That's the problem. Yeah.
I think so. I was waiting for it to that was awesome, record it for me. When we started playing Destiny, there was a couple of occasions where it was we recorded this clip. And I'm like, why did they record that? What's happening? What did I just do? And it was always when we died horribly. But yes, no, that was much fun. I'm still enjoying the game. Again, only really fun when I jump in with people, but definitely 100% fun when I'm in there with other folks.
Well, I've been sort of swinging back and forth this week between playing solo and playing with people, doing some of the after story quests, particularly for the exotic weapons and some of the additional adventure content sort of on my own. And then, when people have been on, just running some public events and strikes and that kind of thing. And I think for me, I've come to the conclusion that I actually like both options equally. Don't get me wrong, I agree with you that it's a really amazing social game, playing with friends. But I actually think that it seriously has legs in a casual manner when you want to hop on by yourself and just play 15, 20 minutes at a time. I think it's actually really good for that kind of thing. You can pick up and put down and do a couple of missions, without too much fuss. And yeah, it's just really nice sort of bite-sized experiences to sort of dig into. It's great like that. So yeah, still massively loving the game. It is... I'm finding new challenges. I've switched out my my loadout, and this week I've been focusing on, instead of taking auto rifles and submachine guns and just spraying the area with bullets, which is my usual MO.
Spray and pray.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally how I've been playing.
Very tactical.
More bullets is better, right? But no,
that's my PUBG strategy.
Yeah, exactly. No, this week's been all about scout rifles and hand cannons for me. And so I've been actually trying to get a bit closer and getting headshots or hitting the sensitive areas on different enemies. And that's one thing I like, actually. I've been sort of toying around with the different foes that you face and working out where their sweet spots are, because it's not always the head on most stuff. The alien sort of constructs, the Vex, which are kind of these mechanoid head-fluted kind of robot thingies. Their center, there's a bright light area, and that's
they've got a gooey center.
Yeah, exactly. Gooey
They're
center.
a caramel koala.
They are.
So,
oh
yeah.
my gosh, that's what they are from now on. Caramel koalas.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you nail them there, they go down pretty quickly. But it's been fun just sort of experimenting with that and working out what to do. And I think, getting a bit more accurate and precise with that sort of strategy is going to help a lot when I dive back in and do the super tricky Nightfall strikes. A bit more control rather than just spraying everything in sight and hoping for the best. So, yeah. But yeah, super good. I'm looking forward to playing it on PC still. I'm super keen for that. So Ollie, as soon as we get back from PAX and clear our plate of anything else that's distracted us that weekend, I'm looking forward to jumping in and doing some pew-pews with you. It's going to be a good time. So
I'm looking forward to pew-pewing.
Nice. So yeah, now we got to something this last weekend as well, which we kind of had talked about and put off a week or two while we got distracted. But along the theme of celebrating Mimo's new beast of a PC, we were able to get back in and play a game that we haven't touched for a while because Mimo hasn't been able to play it, and that's a bit of GTA Online.
I appreciate you guys holding off on the GTA fun times, sort of, while I couldn't play.
Well, it's not like we didn't have plenty of other things.
It was awesome. My very first time I loaded in and it was all good. Number one problem is that I had just come out of playing 4 solid straight hours of Destiny on PlayStation and then picked up an Xbox controller and was like, the fuck is this thing?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
What is wrong with my hands? Why won't they work? I was pressing all of the wrong buttons for the shooting. But yeah, we tried out some wacky races that seemed like the best way to do it because every other public lolly? Wow, words are going well. Every other public lobby was full of hackers and trolls and all of the fun stuff that GTA
Which was
public
disappointing.
sessions
I thought they dealt with a
offer.
bunch of this. I was really sort of disenchanted by the whole thing.
I found that hackers were less common before they started cracking down on hackers than they are now. I feel like they threw down the challenge gauntlet and said this will be a hack-free environment, and they went, we'll see about that. With
Challenge accepted.
Evil hand fingers. Hand fingers?
Hand fingers.
You know what I mean? The thing that Ollie does.
No.
Where he makes a little steeple with his hands and taps his fingers together.
You mean steepling your fingers?
Yeah, like that.
Oh my god, we're all in fine form tonight.
I am feeling the role of Jam tonight. I can't word. I don't know.
Words are hard, people. Words are hard.
Worlds? Oh my god. I'm just going to shut up. You guys talk about the stupid wacky races.
Oh, but you're doing so well. Look, I came to the realization once again, and this is something that's crossed my mind, in the past for sure. But I was very swiftly reminded when we were doing this the other night. I'm really shit at GTA races. Just absolutely woeful at them.
Yeah, you were all of the sad faces. I could feel the sad faces across the internet.
Oh
It
man,
was certainly interesting.
Luke went from laughing and we were blowing things up and the chuckle that you guys heard not 5 seconds ago, and then we were playing these races and all you just hear is oh what, and falling off the edge of things and did not finish, and
Look,
you were not having the fun times.
Don't get me wrong, I've had better nights of doing it with you guys in the past, but given how long it's been since we last jumped on, and I just do not have the GTA racing muscle memory, that is not a thing that is built into me. Getting on and having a situation where Jam and Ollie in particular were just streaks ahead, and Imogen, you were certainly whooping me pretty solidly as well. It got to the
Keyboard
point
for life.
Yeah, it just gets to the point where when you're doing a race like that, if you get to the point where there is absolutely no chance of getting back into the race and you're just basically trying not to embarrass yourself, that's not a fun place to be. So if there was a catch-up mechanic, sure, but when it's just a case of...
There is. It's called catch-up.
But we didn't have it turned on.
We did. It was only not on for one race.
Okay.
Yep.
One race it was disabled.
You telling me that there was a catch-up mechanic turned on and me still being as far behind as I was, that just makes me feel even more like shit. So thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Well,
Anytime.
to be fair, we switched places because then we went to Tron bike mode or whatever that's called.
That was
laser
fun.
bike.
Yeah.
Thingamabob. Yeah, you had great fun in that. Me, not so much.
Well, so the thing about the
I
Tron
died
bikes
a
though
billion
is
times.
because it's basically combat. It's a combat encounter using vehicles and having the light streak come out behind your bike and strategically trying to use that to force other people to ride into it and smash themselves.
It's that very critical forethought that I don't own that was required for that game. and I did not have the brain space for that.
I mean,
Play,
that was the kind of format too that, to my earlier point, unlike the races, you could, with a few clever moves, get right back in the running again in that format. It's not like you would have an insurmountable lead that couldn't be overturned if someone, had a few clever moves. So,
no, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing, and that's usually why in the past when we've played GTA and done races, and I just get absolutely walloped. Why I tend to resort to getting out of my car and picking up an RPG, because that for me is more fun. So
for you and nobody else. So we turned off GTA races because of that very reason.
Yep.
Yes, but I have ceased doing that anyway because I am not having fun unless everybody else is at the same time. So there you go. Yeah, but I mean, GTA, good fun. I'm still keen to jump in and do some more of the actual GTA stuff as opposed to just racing. So I think there's a lot of other things we can still try out in that game. So yeah, jump in again soon, do some more stuff. But oh man,
it will be cool.
Ollie, the other one that you pulled out for us to have a look at the other night, man, I got to hand it to you. This was.
Oh, I see what you did there. See what you did there.
Go on, you explain this thing.
All right, so I saw a video of an amazing game, top notch, just fantastic game.
Like
super
asterisks?
cheap.
Yeah,
And that was the main selling point, by the way, is
Actually,
the fact
not
that
great
it's
game.
really fucking cheap.
Yeah, like $2 US.
$2.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this game is called Hand Simulator.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that are familiar with a game called QWOP, or imagine QWOP meets Surgeon Simulator, and you're not far off with how the controls work. So you control your wrist rotation, the height of your arm, also like each individual finger, the opening and closing of your hand. And of course, the game requires you then to do various manual dexterity tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And so the multiplayer mode we tried was all four of us sat at a table with guns and bullets on the table. You have to first pick up the gun, open it, and then load a bullet or bullets into it, close it, and then fire it. Sounds really easy. You should have been in that Discord server. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
There were swears,
Indeed.
and they were not all coming out of
stupid.
Jam's mouth. They were coming out of everybody's mouths.
Yep.
It was an experience. I will definitely say that.
It
And
was
sure
definitely
was.
worth $2.
Yeah, I think I gave up in about a minute and a half. I
Yep.
threw my gun at Luke's character and it fell on the floor.
Yeah.
And proceeded to make lewd gestures with my hands, which
Yep.
was hard enough as it was. I also did Spider-Man. That was pretty cool. I very much enjoyed that.
well, credit,
It's like, guys, look at
Go
this,
web.
look at this. And everyone's like concentrating down on their guns, like trying to put one bullet. And I'm like, guys, stop what you're doing. Look at me.
yeah.
I'm doing a thing.
It actually reminded me. The whole experience reminded me of. I can't remember which spy film it was, but I think it might have been one of the James Bond films or something similar, where like the hero gets sort of poisoned with like a paralytic agent of some sort, and they can't move their limbs.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like what I would imagine you would be in, like a situation where you have to pick up a gun and fire it at somebody when you actually have no control over any of your faculties. So it was kind of what we were in.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
frustration incarnate.
Credit to Jam, though. She actually managed to load her gun and fire it and nearly shot my dick off. So
Yeah, she missed.
So
She
if
missed.
you hit them at all, they die. Like, you can nick their arm and they're dead. Jam missed after a good solid, 5-10 minutes of cursing?
yeah.
She then proceeds
Oh,
to miss her
more.
one shot.
More. It was like 30 minutes of you guys loading guns.
Like, just the most hilarious
I
shit.
have the video. It was 25 minutes. So yes, you're pretty close.
Oh,
25.
God.
Yeah, 25 minutes. It took her to
That makes
load
it
that
worse,
gun.
not better.
Yeah. And then we jazz hand.
Yeah.
At the end.
So many jazz hands.
So many jazz
Oh,
hands. As soon as
jazz
I could figure out I could do jazz hands, I was like, this is the best.
I don't know if it was a jazz hand
Sold.
more of a hello spasm, but yeah, there was certainly something similar there. It was an interesting experience.
I mean,
I don't even
there is
know.
like a single player mode which has like, they call it like the milkman or milkmaid, I think it's called, where you've got to like try and milk a cow. And I want more like that. I want more like simple-ish tasks. It was like, okay, I was like, all right, the next one will be easier. And it was like, milk the cow, jump scare bullshit, which I didn't even attempt, and like load a gun and invent space-time continuum. Like, it was like... There was no chill
definite
between
arc.
milkmaid and everything else. There was none at all. So very successful at milking the cow, but that's never going to see the internet because reasons.
Yep.
I get a feeling they made that specifically for Twitch, and I'm sure it does very well.
Yep. Well, in Jam's own words, she was able to get a good grip and just went to town. So, yep, it's definitely a Twitch kind of game.
She's gonna love
Words
you for
as
saying
said.
that. I love you. Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Ollie, you've got another one on the list, so go for it, man. What else have you been playing?
I do. So, because of a discussion that we've had, I believe it was off-air. I want to say it's off-air.
Yeah, I think so.
About me potentially finding horror games for different people to play. Because I love horror games. They're great if they're good. And not everyone enjoys them. So I wanted to try and find a horror game that I think the various people of Party Loaded could enjoy.
Let's call it a spade. What we're really talking about here is what's a horror game we can actually convince Mimo to play. That's pretty much what this comes down to.
Also that.
Yep.
Mostly that. And so that's where I started. I was like, okay, what's a horror game that, Mimo could potentially play? And I found a Japanese visual novel called The Letter. And I played the prologue. And I thought this was actually like a decent chunk of the game. No, this was the intro sequence. Because after I finished this part, the actual intro animation, the anime intro started. I was like, oh my god, I just played the little prologue. Holy shit, it was amazing. So I really want to get Mimo to play it now. And I haven't played any more of it because I want the rest to be a surprise for me as well.
How long was the prologue?
About 40-ish minutes.
That's a pretty decent prologue. Wow, okay.
Yep, and that was just to get to the intro animation. And it set up a lot of stuff. It was cool. And it was actually voice acted as well, which is very unusual for a visual novel, actually. Or at least in my very incredibly limited visual novel experience. I'm sure someone will be there going,
I've taken a look at it. It looks doable. I'm not guaranteeing that we'll play this.
That's commitment right there.
But it looks like intriguing, steeple fingers.
Are you trying to do the Mr. Burns thing? Is that what you're trying to do? Like the Mr. Burns, excellent. Is that what you're trying to do?
Not the. I want to say a word, but I don't want to say it on the internet. Like, not drumming my fingers together, but just like holding them together. You know how, Ollie, sometimes you just tap the tips of your fingers? You're like, excellent. Like that.
But only the tips.
See, I can't describe things. I'm broken.
I'm just gonna myself so much tonight.
I mean, I appreciate
all
that.
All of Luke's trigger words, all of them. Yeah.
But
anyway,
yes, The Letter, a Japanese visual novel horror game that we're going to get Mimo to play it.
Sure. Why not? Let's do it.
It'll be fantastic.
Awesome.
I was 95% in. Now I'm 100% in.
Yep.
Boom. Done.
Sweet.
All right.
We'll make a night of it. We'll sort of set the scene. We'll get some good foods going. We'll turn all the lights off and we'll have a good time. It's going to be awesome. So, yeah. All right. So, can I do the thing?
Come on.
I'm super
do your
excited.
thing.
All right.
It's not Hearthstone, so I'm okay with it.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Well, I this week got to play a game I've been looking forward to for quite some time. It is the story prequel to the greatest fucking video game ever made. It is Metroid: Samus Returns.
Humble.
Yeah. It
Very
is.
humble.
Come on. It's not even, arguable. You could debate it. You're wrong. So yeah, anyway, long story short, this is probably the biggest 3DS title release that we have seen this year. And with the exception of the new, or sort of, I say new in inverted commas, the slightly upgraded Pokemon titles that are expected in a couple of months' time, I think that we're seeing probably if I was a betting man, I'd say these are probably going to be the biggest final releases for 3DS because I think the Switch is doing so well as a platform that we're going to start to see a lot more focus on that and a lot less focus on these sorts of big titles. But anyway, we'll see what happens. So way back when Metroid was first released, so the original Metroid game was 30 years ago this month. So it's sort of having a bit of an anniversary at the moment. Before Super Metroid came out on the SNES, there was actually a Game Boy game, which was kind of like pitched as Metroid 2. And the story picks up off after the original Metroid, where you sort of, you fight the space pirates, you defeat Mother Brain, you capture like the remnants of the last Metroid, because the whole idea of Metroid is you're basically trying to, rid the universe of these, super dangerous space parasites that, could otherwise, their genetic material could be used for, severe ill by, some of the nefarious forces in the galaxy. So the story sort of picks off there with Metroid Samus Returns, where you basically have gotten like a reading, or you've got word from the Galactic Federation or whatever the lawmakers are in that sort of setting, that there is like a Metroid that has escaped from the first story. It's on a planet that the space pirates are known to be at, and you basically have to go in and hunt this thing down. But as you find out that this thing is like actually rapidly breeding, and you have to try and take out like all of its offspring before it sort of gets out of hand. Now, in terms of gameplay, basically what that means is that throughout the game you've got to hunt down 40 Metroids. So it seems like a lot, because it is. And every single one of these things in this game is basically like a mini boss fight. So,
awesome.
Yeah, most of them are very similar. Like they kind of, they pop out and, they fly around in the air and they sort of dive bomb you, and you have to try and take them out with missiles before they sort of do too much damage to you. But then as you progress through the game, they learn new tricks, and each successive one that you fight against has different abilities. It's kind of like it's mutating in its different evolutions. Now, I so far am about 8 hours into this thing, and I've only captured 8 of them. So I've got 32 to go. So if that's any indicator,
Jesus.
I think this game's got a fair chunk of content to get through, which is really good for a 3DS game. But the other things about this game that really appeal to me a great deal, I'm going to draw some comparisons to Super Metroid, because a lot of people will probably understand that sort of more than talking about it on its own. Super Metroid, great game. If you were to look at sort of advancing the gameplay mechanics of Super Metroid and then putting it on a 3DS platform, that's basically what this is. So you have a few sort of additions to the game that make it really sort of, I guess, modern. Like you've got full 360-degree sort of firing arc, so you can actually lock your feet holding down one of the trigger buttons and then fire your gun in any direction around you, which is really sweet. You also have a bunch of different options with your morph ball. So one of the things that Samus does in all of the Metroid games, you can actually sort of collapse yourself down into a ball and roll around, which is usually a key mechanic with sort of finding hidden areas and bombing through walls and things like that. So now you've got different versions of that. You've got like a jump ability with it. You can turn into like a spider ball and climb up walls and, all sorts of different bits and pieces, which is really cool. Some of the weapons from the original sort of Metroid games make a return. So you've got your freeze cannon and that sort of thing, which is really cool. But you've got some different armor upgrades, and these are really interesting. Like there's one which is like a shock upgrade where you can sort of turn it on. You've got like an energy meter, and it allows you to run through hazardous stuff. So there's some areas in the game where there's like these spiky plants that you can't actually navigate through. They kind of do you damage, and you avoid them for a while, and then you suddenly realize that after you get this upgrade, you can actually go through them, and that opens up huge areas of the game to you that you hadn't even sort of encountered before. So yeah, really, really good. Like the puzzle element to the platforming is super, super excellent at the moment. I'm very pleasantly surprised by how much of a call out to the original sort of Metroid games it is, but it's also like a few steps ahead of that as well. So it is everything I could want from a 2D Metroid game. It is just fucking incredibly good. And it is one of the games that I have actually bothered to turn on the 3D function on my 3DS for as well. And I don't do that very often. I tend to find the 3DS as a platform as 3D in all in just name. Like I don't actually like playing games in 3D because they don't often look very good. This is an exception to that. This actually looks exceptionally good when you turn the 3D mode on. So anyone who's playing it, I would strongly encourage you to give that a go and see how it looks to you. So yeah, it's great. I could rave about this game for ages. I'm just going to say, if you enjoy platforming and you have a 3DS, buy Metroid Samus Returns. You will not regret it. It is mint. So there you go. That's my endorsement. Mm-hmm. I would suspect that you wouldn't have expected anything different from me.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, I have high standards when it comes to 2D Metroid games. This one meets my standards. Let's just say that. Nice and simple.
There you go. Yeah. That works.
And we'll see what happens with the next 3D sort of proper Metroid game when Metroid Prime 4 comes out on the Switch at some point in the future. This will keep me tided over until then. I'm very curious how many hours it's going to take me, actually. I'm guessing it's probably going to be about a 30-hour game if I was going to have a stab at it. But we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, so yeah, that's all the fun game stuff. Let's tuck into a few news items this week. There's been a little bit of stuff going on. I would like to open up tonight with a little bit of discussion that has kind of evolved over the last few weeks, and there's a few things that have been happening that we haven't really spoken about, mostly because it's kind of mired in a bit of controversy that we didn't feel the need to touch on. But just to catch everybody up, in case you've been living under a rock, There's been a few things going on lately with the old PewDiePie. So Pewds made a bit of a slip when he was playing PUBG on stream a few weeks back and uttered a racial slur, which was not taken very well by a number of people. Not the least of which being a couple of the people who run Campo Santo, which is the company that makes the game Firewatch that we've spoken about on the show before. So the long and short of it is that they basically turned around and said, look, we know PewDiePie's done some content involving our game. Given his recent conduct on stream and sort of, dropping an N-bomb when streaming, we actually no longer want to be associated with him and we don't want him to use any of our games for his content. So what they did is they issued a what's called a DMCA strike against him on YouTube, and basically what that is it's a request that a games company or a publisher can put to YouTube to basically prevent somebody from using their content in their videos. Now, of course, there's other ways they can go about this. They can actually get in touch with the creator themselves and basically request their stuff to be taken down. But it's pretty clear that in this instance they wanted to make a bit of a statement and they went about it that way, which opened up a huge can of worms. Controversy aside, it kind of gets into a big discussion around the use of things like DMCA strikes on YouTube. Whether games companies are right to do that kind of thing because what is fair use of their content? When does it sort of stop being theirs when a creator sort of puts their own spin on it and adds their own commentary and has their own game plan? It's just a huge big mess. But the thing is that there was a few different camps that sort of arose out of this. There was obviously, the supporters of PewDiePie and people who don't like to see games companies kind of, wield their power on YouTube like this. And then there's the other side that basically just wanted to string him up, by the ankles and let him get everything that's coming to him. But when there's been sort of large controversies involving particular games or particular games companies, one sort of really worrying trend that we've seen in the last year, which has cropped up a couple of times, the other recent sort of event being one that we talked about on the show a few months ago where Grand Theft Auto 5 it sort of came under a bit of controversy because of Rockstar's... Oh, actually, it wasn't Rockstar. It was... what's the publisher of GTA? It's Rockstar's the developer. The publisher is 2K. Is that right? I think it's 2K.
Not 100% sure.
Not 100% sure. All right. So anyway, we'll check that while we're chatting. But they basically had a very, very harsh sort of takedown of a bunch of modding tools, and that created a huge sort of rift in the community, lots of controversy. Now, what people have been doing when this sort of stuff has been going on, regardless of the source of the controversy and regardless of what's actually kicked the whole thing off, is there's been this new fad that's emerged of what has been dubbed review bombing. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. So basically what it is when people who are super mad against a particular developer or about a particular game or something that's happened, they make their voice heard using the tools that are available to them. And for most people, that has ended up being hopping onto platforms like Steam and leaving negative reviews for a game. Now, this is a bit of a problem because it is a situation where a whole bunch of people en masse organize and mobilize and sort of, it's basically like, it's almost like a protest rally in a way. And they hop on and they try and tank a game's review score to make a public statement. Now, that obviously is not indicative of the actual game and its quality. What it is it's indicative of a particular, I guess, recent controversy or sort of, public rage that's happening and people are sort of making their views heard. So, but anyone actually going and looking for that game on Steam or whatever other platform we're talking about will suddenly see a game that otherwise would have been maybe marked as overwhelmingly positive that now is showing up as a very, very negative score, and it gives them the impression that it's not a good game, which is, of course, not the case. What's actually going on is, transcended the quality of the game itself. It's about a political movement, essentially. So now, because this has become a bit of a thing this year, Steam's actually been working to kind of combat it. And there's various different ways that they've done that, actually allowing you to filter their reviews by sort of, developer and curators versus general public, people who have actually purchased the game, people who haven't, that kind of stuff. But their recent method of trying to do this is they're basically looking at graphing review scores so that you can actually see where there's spikes in, where the reviews have sort of been, out of the ordinary in a particular way. So the theory being is that if there's a particular controversy that's causing like a rift over a short period of time, it should be very immediately immediately identifiable and they can sort of mitigate the negative impact of that somewhat. But it's just that, like, at the end of the day, it's a shit situation. Like, it'd be great if this kind of thing didn't happen. But at the end of the day, if you put reviews in the hands of the general public and allow them to sort of, go to town on, making their voices heard as opposed to leaving it in the domain of professionals, then this kind of thing's always going to be a risk. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, guys? Like, is this something that concerns you? Do you think this is a worrying trend? Do you think it's a fad that will happen for a little while and then die out? I mean, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think that it's really, it depends if you really pay attention. For me, it doesn't matter if there's a bad review on the game, like, I'll look at what the reviews are. And I guess the spike helps me, like, identify the fact that they were bombing. But I just don't understand why they wouldn't, if they can do the graph, they can obviously see when there's a spike of these reviews, why they wouldn't just shut down the review for that period of time. Like, shut down the reviews on a game when they identify, like, a large spike like that, because that's, I can't think of a genuine case other than maybe launch day where reviews would flood in all at the same time, other than being this sort of organized attack. So I don't know why they wouldn't just be able to set something up to, like, shut that down for a period of time.
Give you an idea of the
reviews
sort
are
of
suspended
numbers.
for 24 hours.
Yeah, well, I mean, that might be a good approach too. To give you an idea of the kind of numbers we're talking about, like Firewatch specifically after this PewDiePie controversy, I mean, when Sean Vanneman from Campo Santo kicked off and sort of said on his Twitter account that he's going to be issuing the takedown claim, like the DMCA takedown for PewDiePie, 2 days later, Steam Spy, which is a sort of like a Steam stats reporting service, reported that Firewatch had, in that time, saw 510 negative review scores posted. And that had a massive effect on the game's overall score on the Steam page for that game. So now 510, that seems like a lot to me to suddenly pop up. Like, I mean, it could be much, much greater. Like the GTA example was much bigger numbers than that. But for a game like Firewatch, which, is an indie title, essentially, that's, I mean, that kind of thing can pretty seriously hurt a developer.
I mean, Steam reviews, if they're important to people, then hopefully they're knowledgeable enough to know that these sorts of things happen and can, like, rather than just looking at the scores, actually form their own opinions and maybe look at some professional reviews if they're not sure, professional inverted commas, you know what I mean? The more qualified reviews where they've had a bit more time with the game or whatever. I don't know. Ollie, what do you think? I think this is silly.
I don't think it's silly because a lot of the time, and I'm going to apologize a little bit here, is a lot of people do just look at the reviews and go, oh, sweet, 98% positive, 500 views, awesome. 600 reviews, terrible things. Great. Let's avoid that. And so I do think it's relevant. I like the graph approach because shutting down all reviews for a time period, yes, it mitigates the negative ones, but it also removes any possible positive ones that could have been happening in that time period as well. So I'm not a huge fan of that.
I agree. But if you really like it, I don't know. Do you just look at the score, or when it's negative, do you drill down into why it's negative? Like if it was, say, even, like mixed reviews on the thing, would you read?
If it's mixed reviews, me personally, I'm a really bad example because I very rarely just browse Steam games and go, ooh, what's this one? Have a look at it, that sort of thing. Okay. But I imagine that people, and I'm going to generalize here, so apologies again if I offend anyone, I imagine people that do look at those will either go, oh, wow, that's a really bad score. Yeah, let's just not even worry about that. And if it's a mixed one, then they might click in and be like, okay, what are people saying? Or okay, maybe I'll see what another online review says of, like, because everyone has their reviewers or their go-to places for information. Yeah. And so generally I would imagine then if it's a mixed review, they'd go to their preferred place to double check and be like, oh no, the guy that I tend to agree with when reviewing games says this was really good. All right, I won't listen to those reviews and I'll give it a try. But if the review is really high or really low, that's generally indicative, where it's the mixed ones that tends to draw a bit further study. So I feel like doing the graph and removing those huge spikes is probably for the best because you don't want to remove all negative things.
They're not removing the spikes, though. They're just alerting people to the fact that there was a spike.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it will still read as a bad review. You'll just be able to look at the graph and go, oh, okay, well, there's a spike here. That was obviously this, which is why I'm saying it's silly. Like, if they can identify it with a graph, then shouldn't they be doing? And it also
Okay.
plays in. Steam made that change recently where it's only looking at reviews that are recent.
Yeah.
In case there was like patches that changed, which is a benefit and also a detriment, obviously, in this regard.
I'm raising
to
my
some
hand,
games.
but you can't see because we're on the internet.
Sorry.
What does this... No, that's fine. What does this... Is there a visual display for these spikes? Or is it just, be aware, this game had some fuckery with its reviews? Like, how is it...
It is a visual sort of indication of it, but the thing that we're kind of skirting around here as the missing link is that it's presented as graphical information to the consumer. It's not used by Steam to mitigate the issue themselves. Like they don't have people behind the scenes looking at this saying, okay, this game's had a spike, therefore we're going to act and we're actually going to change how the reviews are being received and how the information's being sort of published. It's down to people to interpret it how they want. Exactly. And to a certain extent they have to, because otherwise, like there's a whole bunch of different reasons why a game could receive a spike like that. I mean, it's not just an outside controversy that could trigger that kind of thing.
Could be a patch. Could be a patch.
Exactly. The developer could put up a patch that breaks
Could
the
be
game.
No Man's Sky.
Oh, Ollie.
No, it could be a piece of DLC. It could be a patch. Civilization 5 was a good recent example where they've actually put out a couple of their patches and resource packs that people have reacted quite negatively to, and there's been smaller spikes for that game of negativity. But
You
it's
mean
actually
Civ 6?
Sorry, Civ 6, yeah. But it's been specifically relating to game content. It's not been outside controversy. It's actually been relevant. Some of the comments. But my concern with all of this...
People just need to be informed. If you read things based on reviews, understand how the system works.
Yeah. No, look, I agree. But here's where I think things could get dangerous, and this is my worry. If review bombing becomes part of gaming culture, and as we know, this kind of thing can snowball and become, more commonplace very easily when it starts, picking up momentum. I don't ever want to have a situation where people get into the habit of review bombing games because their expectations haven't been met on sort of less serious levels. So we're talking about extremes here, where we've got people sort of dropping racial slurs and doing more serious stuff that can draw the ire of the general public. But what's the gap between that and then a whole bunch of people getting upset because maybe a developer misses an update deadline? Or something like that. Like today, they're getting upset about this. In a year's time, are they going to be getting upset about things that are nowhere near as serious? And because it's become common practice to review bomb, it becomes something that they go to as their first tool in the chest. So that's my concern. I don't want it to become more common than it is. Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, if you're going to have a open public review system that you are not going to tamper with, because as soon as you tamper with it, then it's no longer an openly public review system. You have to expect stuff like that. And at that point, it's more on driving the culture away from that rather than bracing for the inevitable, because that not necessarily is inevitable, but you can take steps toward avoiding that culture developing in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
and it's the same. I mean, it's been happening on movie review sites like Rotten Tomatoes and everything else for much longer than it ever has on Steam. Voting really obscure movies and shows way up the charts or low, depending on controversies and whatever else. So
yeah, exactly.
It's just going to exist in an open forum, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because as The Simpsons taught me, some people are just jerks.
Super true. All right. Well,
exactly.
Let's throw to you for the next nugget tonight. So, Call of Duty, some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So mine's going to be a little less controversial. So mine's quite simply the Call of Duty World War II story trailer dropped. And it introduces your squad and introduces you sort of what's going on. And it's what I call, I stole this term from Penny Arcade, bullshots, which it's like, here's what looks like game engine footage potentially, but it's been spruced up for our trailer. And that's cool. I have no issue with that. But yeah, it's interesting because I feel like they've taken a note from Battlefield 1, which was... So original Call of Duty was World War II, you're doing the beaches of Normandy, that sort of thing. Nazis are bad, they're the bad guys. US the good guys, cool, let's go. Battlefield 1 then, much later down the track, went into that morally grey area because World War I, there is no definitive good guys and bad guys in World War I.
Yeah.
World War I was a clusterfuck, let's be honest. And so I think they're trying to take some of that morally grey, more mature storytelling, like you might see in, say, like The Witcher and stuff like that, where there isn't necessarily a definitive bad guy. Like, okay, this one does have a villain, and yes, he is a Nazi, shocking twist, but it does sort of go a little bit more deeper into the soldier's psyche and how they treat their men, because in particular they have a look at the officers and how they're treating their men in the war. One guy's like, we're cogs in the machine, and the guy's like, no, these are people, what's wrong with you, man? That sort of thing. And so it's also a bit more of, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think they'll do the whole D-Day landing thing again, which is nice. Apparently it's going to be mostly through the like Battle of the Bulge, that sort of thing, as they're making the way into Germany, which is kind of cool because it's not theatre. I think they're going to focus on theatres that we haven't seen a lot of, because in this day and age you can't just reskin Normandy beach landings.
It's a tricky standard to aspire to with World War II content, because it is a genre that has been done a lot by different games.
So much.
Yeah.
And so they need to try something a bit different. And I feel like, because there are plenty of crazy bonkers, like, not just big, but just bonkers World War II battles that aren't, like, you know, the ones that are constantly shown in movies or various games and stuff, that are still really freaking important to the outcome of World War II in certain theatres. And so being able to see some of that, I'm actually really hopeful that they start going down that path a bit more. Because, let's be honest, Call of Duty as of late hasn't been very good. So, sorry, Internet. So yeah, I mean, I look forward to it. Are you guys more of a fan of a morally grey story when it comes to war things? Or are you more just like, no, we want black and white? What's your take on that?
Oh, you go for it, Luke, because I'll say mine because mine's super short. I just don't enjoy playing war games, especially when they're based on real life events.
Yeah,
I feel like they're very emotive, and that's why when World War II and even Battlefront and all the more realistic ones, it's really difficult because that history is recent. And like you say, controversial, so it's very difficult for them to sort of build a game around it as well. But kudos to them for trying. I mean, if they can shine light on some of the grey areas, good, but otherwise just not interested.
I guess I kind of feel similarly, but for different reasons to Imogen. So, like, I'm a terrible nerd as far as the history stuff goes. Like, I was never deeply into, history or, wartime, backgrounds of historical events and what actually happened and that kind of thing. Like, when I play games, I really like to engross myself in the fantasy elements and the stories unwritten. Like, I like to create my own narrative rather than sort of necessarily replay stuff that has happened a particular way. And there are exceptions to that. It's not a hard and fast rule. I'm certainly not going to say that I would never enjoy a war game based on a traditional war that's actually happened in history. That's not true at all. But I just don't have as great an interest in it as some of the other games that are a bit more fantastical. So Call of Duty is an interesting example because I think that when you come to some of the Call of Duty titles like the Black Ops stuff, for instance, that's unique storytelling. That's using real world elements, but telling stories set in different environments where it's not sort of replaying specific historical events. So that kind of stuff appeals to me a great deal because I think that's really, really cool. Traditional war stuff, not as much. And World War I and II, like, if I was to pick out of the two of them, I think I prefer World War II stuff purely from a gameplay perspective because the technology is a little bit more advanced. I think it gives you a greater range of options when it comes to weapons and equipment to actually use in a gameplay sense. World War I is less that, and it's a bit more restrictive, and I don't think it gives you the same buzz as using some of the slightly more modern stuff in the World War II settings. So, yeah, I don't know. It's all going to come down to the actual specific game. I'm not going to make a call before I sort of see it and play it. But, there's a reason why I tend to go for some of the more modern and sci-fi and fantasy type sort of shooters, and that's generally that. So, yeah, that's me.
Fair enough.
But we'll see. I won't count it out. But there's a fuckload of games coming out later this year, so it's going to have to fight for its spot.
That's very true.
I can see the PAX booth now, and it's going to do my head in.
Yep. Oh, look, if I had to make a choice...
It'll be wonderful and incredibly popular. Yeah. But, yeah.
If we're talking World War II stuff, and I have to make a choice between, say, COD and Wolfenstein, no prizes for guessing which one I'm going to go with. So
no, that's fair.
Yeah. Speaking of which, new Wolfenstein 2 trailer dropped this week. You should check it out. It's fucking amazing. Anyway. The game looks so good.
God,
Hashtag
just
not sponsored.
fanboy all over the place on that one.
I've come right around on Wolfenstein this year. I am more excited than ever about this sequel. It's going to be amazing. Ollie, hurry up and play New Order. You are doing yourself a disservice.
Ollie wishes to remain objective.
Remain objective and play the
I
damn
will
game.
meant.
objective and apathetic.
Yeah.
Oh man, no, I wouldn't be recommending
That's
it
gonna be on
so
your tombstone,
strongly
dude.
if I didn't think that you will love the shit out of it. Like I think it's right up your alley. Yeah, I really do.
Oh,
So-
look, I'm sure I would. And conveniently, I have holidays coming up, so maybe I will.
Yeah. All right, anyway, well, that's probably a good opportunity for us to ditch the news and head into our discussion topic of the week. So now we went back and forth on this a little bit because we were originally going to do a party playback topic tonight, sort of centered around Imogen's birthday date or Ollie's birthday date. But for Imogen in particular, we didn't really think that there were any interesting games that came out in 1996, so we went with a different topic instead.
Oh, thanks, Luke. It's really because I'm so fucking old.
Anywho, so
old.
now,
Why are you so old?
if there is one thing in common with the two of you for different reasons, it's that, when it comes to video gaming, you do have the tendency, and you have had the tendency over the time that we've been recording the show especially, to get a little salty on occasion, little wound up.
Little old me. Nah.
I mean, salt is my default.
Pretty much. Your default is salt.
You
Yeah.
are saline. You are just saline.
I am
Straight
alkaline
up.
as fuck.
That's it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we want to talk tonight about what makes you absolutely frickin' gamer rage. Like, what sets you off? What is the trigger for
Luke.
putting you on tilt?
There we go. Done.
Me?
Playing games with Luke.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the
Wow.
actual games, not the people who piss us off, because that'll be a whole episode of these
And
guys ragging
segment
on
are
me.
done.
Yeah. And podcast over.
Yeah.
Next week, Mimo will not be here.
So let me put this sort of qualifier on it then. Besides me, what really is rage-inducing about games that
That
you
should
guys
definitely
play?
be the title of the show, other than Luke.
Other than Luke. Yeah, I mean, what are your triggers?
for
Like, if
Oliver.
you had to pin it down to something, when it comes to getting... And we're not just talking about games we don't like. We're talking about what actually
No.
triggers us. Like, what pisses us right off and gets us raging when it comes to video games. So, Ollie,
Goddamn.
Ollie, do you want to start?
Sure, why not? For me, immensely high learning curves with no indication of what the fuck you're meant to be doing.
That,
So-
except I'm stupider than Ollie.
Wow. And more self-degrading.
Yeah, definitely. But you know what I mean? Like, you're more clued into the puzzle side of things. But it's exactly that for me.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, if I had not watched tutorials on OG Minecraft, that game would have made me very fucking angry. Like, holy shit.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
games are basically because I started playing it back when it was alpha. And
okay.
so, yeah, my first experience was I punched a tree. I dig a hole. I put some dirt over my head. There's zombies and scary things. The end. But yeah, it's, for me, the learning curve. No clear instruction or unintuitive, controls. So, fair enough if you go, there's no controls, you just move your mouse around, or it's WASD and, space jump, whatever, and all the other bits. Fair enough, not a problem. And before everyone shouts at me and goes, you can change your control settings, dickhead. You can check your controls on that. I'm like, that's fair. Entirely reasonable response. But not every game has that, especially smaller indie games. And so a game that just goes, have this learning curve, deal with it, and you're like, well, shit, is not my recipe for a good time.
Yeah, it's that. But there is definitely games that I would list that have clear instructions, and the bit that makes me rage is that it's just really difficult. So requires a really high level of hand-eye coordination, especially on console. Not so much on PC. And I find that incredibly difficult. And if I have to repeat a task more than 10 times, I will break things. There has been a video that's been going around the internet about the truth behind girl gamers, which I hate the term, but you'll get the point. Where they're they offer her the VR headset and she goes into VR and they're like, oh, this would be cool, give her an experience. She starts swearing and die this and blah blah blah. That's what I turn into And I don't realize I do it. It happens, but it happens in all games. So the trigger, I guess, is just playing games.
The trigger is breathing
particularly
oxygen while
rage
playing
induced.
games.
Yeah, particularly, that steep learning curve. Just if it kicks my butt, or it's particularly hard and repetitive, I will rage. As a major action.
I spend my term raging.
Mine's a little different, I think. Like I don't rage at difficulty level. That's kind of something that doesn't really trigger me too much. But what I do rage at is when difficulty causes reverse progress. Like if you lose progress due to how hard a game is, like you go backwards, that kind of thing can trigger me. Yeah. So I don't mind beating my head against a wall as long as I'm not getting pushed down the other side of the street as a result of failing repeatedly, if that makes sense. So
yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Fun analogy.
And it's just kind of something that, being a gamer sort of, born in the early 80s and growing up during that period where most games had like a real lack of save points, and the general sort of attitude towards game design back then was you got X number of lives and that was it. And if you failed after all that, just deal with it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that actually prepares you quite well for this kind of thing, because you do get to those games where, once you lose your last life, tough shit, you're back at the beginning, you have to go through it all again. And games by today's standards are way lenient in that regard. Like they're much, much
kids
cushier.
These days.
You haven't played a game called Volgar the Viking, so
yeah.
I'm just going to put that one out there.
Grandfather Luke over here.
Kids have it so easy.
Back in my day, we had to play games uphill both ways in the snow.
No,
with only one controller.
I think one of the most common things that triggers people as well is when control is taken out of their hands, like when a random element occurs that fucks their experience or their progress. So and this is super common in real life games like poker and things like that. Like you hear the term in poker, like people getting tilted. People get hot under the collar or they get angry when the odds go against them. It's something that's out of their control. It's something that no matter how skilled their gameplay is, sometimes they will snatch defeat from the jaws of victory just because of the hand that they're dealt. And that kind of thing can be quite
the RNG.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now,
you know what triggers me?
Yeah.
The word triggered.
Mine's AF.
Yeah. Oh, really? I use that all the time.
I know. It pisses me off. I hate it. Actually, I will say, for me personally, for the most part, I very rarely rage at games in particular. Like, unless the game is, just poorly constructed. For me, I often rage at my own inability.
Yes.
So if I struggle at something and I'm sucking like an entire buffet of dicks at it, then
that's the worst
I
buffet.
get angry at myself. I'm like, why am I so bad? Why? I let him shoot me. Why did I let him shoot me? Why did I miss? What's wrong with me? Why did I hit that corner? I could have just turned a little bit more. What the fuck? And I get angry at myself and my own like lack of motor skills, essentially, or lack of memory. If it's like, why did I forget that happens? I've played this part 5 times now. Of course this happens.
Just as self-deprecating as I am.
I am. And yeah, that sort of like spurs me on. I'm like, no, fuck it. I'm going to get better. Let's do this. And that's what gets me, that sort of like angry game, like hate gaming. I'm like, no, I will not be beaten by pixels.
Yeah, I think it's pretty rare these days that I rage at a game for not meeting my expectations in terms of like quality or game style or that sort of thing. Like that might have been something in the past, but these days you've got such a wealth of options available when it comes to previewing content before you shell out the money to buy something that I don't think you can really blame that for sort of catching you off guard. Yeah, it's something that maybe is a bit different to how it was, back in the day when we were relying on written reviews, and often, we'd spend the money on a game and it just wouldn't meet our expectations because we had no other way of knowing. And it's sort of, I don't know if it would be rage inducing though. I think it's probably more disappointment than anything else. But that's usually not an issue for me. So I don't know. Well, should we talk about some specifics then? So what actual games over the course of your gaming history have you known triggers for you, like ones that, have historically been your weakness as far as getting a bit hot under the collar? So, Ollie, if you had to pick one or two or three or more, what really sets you off? What kind of stuff?
Okay, games that used to set me off. Like, I'll start back in the day. So a game that used to set me off quite a bit before I came to fruition as a fully fledged socially functional nerd was Counter-Strike Source.
Oh, yes.
Because that was my intro to, I won't use the word, like, hardcore, and I'm doing an air quote, but it's the internet, so you can't tell. But it was definitely my first foray into actually trying to get actively good at a game and being, like, genuinely trying hard and being good at it. So when that didn't work, oh boy, because Australian internet back in that day, there were some fun times with that, because Counter-Strike can be very twitch and very precision driven at times. And so that game became math angles at that point, because it's like, all right, I should be able to get this angle here, which will let me see 3 pixels of his face. Click. So that was fun. That was back in the day, and we'd be like, how the fuck did you shoot me? This is bullshit. Fuck you, internet. Or when mum or dad picked up the phone mid-game, and you're like, no! Why? So that was fun. Actually, that was beyond that, but still. And for me, the modern memory one is good old Mario Maker. So this is a game that I play with my partner, and she's an old school Nintendo fan. Like, if you see her on various Nintendo games, she's fucking terrifying. Like, she can complete Dr. Mario on the hardest difficulty and, like, barely break a sweat. It's fucking horrific, and I will not play her in Mario Kart for a reason. And so we like to have, a couple bonding time where we play Mario Maker, and we'll be like, oh yes, we'll do the 16 normal levels and unlock a little sprite guy, and that's cool. And then every now and then we get really silly, like, let's try expert. And for the most part, we're like, oh, okay, we'll work through this. Yeah, this is all right. It only cost us 25 Marios. That's fine. That's cool. You start with 100, by the way, and there's 16 levels. And then we'll just get to a level which just punches us square in the genitalia. And we're like, what do you do? What the fuck is this? And we're just like, okay, if I do this, and I go, oh my god. Like, I feel so sorry for her neighbours because we play at her place. And I have some very colourful language and creative swearing, and so does she. And it gets loud at some points. Because we're very passionate gamers. That's the word I'll use. We're passionate about our games. And so Mario Maker or Mario in general is one of those games where you can be like, okay, I've done this perfectly, I've done this perfectly, I just made that, did this perfectly, and I fucking misclicked.
Yeah. Digital
equivalent of flipping the table.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I am amazed, like, so amazed our Wii U controller is still in one piece. Like, genuinely surprised how intact our Wii U controller is.
It's a pretty robust unit, though. It's built for that kind of action, I would say.
The amount of times it's been bashed into our leg as we slam it up and down in anger, it's like, oh, my god. So yeah, Mario Maker gets my pick.
Your rage pick.
The modern day rage-inducing.
Well, Imogen, what game makes you rage the most, and why is it Ori and the Blind Forest?
My list is so long, and as you've been talking, I've been adding more and more and more.
Aww.
Special mention to one of the first games that I played all the way through, which is actually free on Steam and through Humble Bundle, a bunch of good old games actually at the moment, called Abe's Odyssey. A little old game.
Oh,
Abe's Odyssey. That
Love
freaking
that
game, like exactly what you're talking about, Luke, about it sending you back, and that game punished you for not figuring out things, and like, like when you smushed all your friends accidentally behind you, be like, God damn it! Or one of them like wanders off the edge, or I don't know.
They were the old Oddworld games, weren't they? That series. Yeah, I
Abe's
remember
Odyssey.
those.
Fucking loved Abe's Odyssey.
You could make them fart. That was the best bit. And you go hee hee hee. Like, so if you farted, they'd laugh, and then vice versa. They fart, and then you could laugh back at them, and you formed a bond through emotes. It was probably one of the first games with like proper emotes.
Quality.
Maybe, probably not. Who knows? I'm not good at these things.
Spurious facts.
Basically, you could probably add anything that we played for the game of the month. to rage-inducing. A special mention to Devil Daggers. Hand Simulator gets added to that list after.
No, that's fair.
Super
That's
fun,
fair.
exciting things. What was that puzzle one, Luke, where it was super obscure? I mean, it was fun, inverted commas. You were in like a big maze.
Antechamber. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, that antechamber. That's one.
Oh, that's such a good game.
It is, but I was like, what do you want from me? I went this way before. What's happening? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So that was that learning curve thing because I'm not good at puzzles. But Ori and the Blind Forest, by far, is the biggest rage-inducing game for me. And that's when I say it doesn't mean it's a bad game or that I don't enjoy it. But the first game that I break a controller with my bare hands will be playing Ori and the Blind Forest because it is, oh my gosh. Like you get to the point where you're like, okay, like you're saying, Ollie, like you do this, this, and this, but you guys saw me play that game. It takes me a long time.
I was about to suggest
things.
when you were playing that game with us in the room that you put a mouthguard in, like just to stop you from grinding your teeth down. That was kind of the level I was observing.
It got to the stage where I was like, all right, I need to pause because like my shoulders were like up next, like attached to my ears and my hands were clenched. And I was like, right, my whole body wanted to relax at that stage. I was like, well, okay, just shake it out.
I wanted to take the controller off you just to like be like, here, it's okay. It's okay. You don't need to break the little controller.
And all my life, that moment is when people have gone, here, I'll help you, or I'll do that for you, and those types of things, which is, fairly natural because it looks like I am a human being in severe pain.
But it pisses you off even more, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. That is what we call a hashtag trigger for me.
Yeah.
But Oliver, the second I went to the bathroom.
I was just seeing what it was like on a controller. I hadn't played it on a controller.
Sure.
I really had.
I'm not going to lie. I watched him doing it. I knew it was going to trigger you, and I sat back and waited.
Yeah, and that's why Luke is one of the most rage-inducing people that I play games with.
Luke is what we call walking clickbait, mixed with an internet troll.
Yeah. The only other sort of notable mention is a game that at the beginning of the podcast I mentioned quite a lot. You Must Build a Boat. Great iOS game. Super great, like little puzzle crossed with, ship builder game. Mm-hmm. Very pixel, very cute, fun to play, but it will kick your butt in the later sessions. And it got to the stage where I actually deleted it off my iPad recently. I have not built my boat. I did not finish. It just got way too complicated and difficult, and it just punished you way too much for not passing levels.
But Imogen,
and
you
repetitive
must
nature was too
build
much.
the boat. You must.
And that was the thing. Even in the game title, they're like forcing an opinion on me, and I'm not down for that. So stupid. Every time I was like, "You must build a boat." I'm like, "All right, thanks." Helpful tip title.
I'm aware, motherfucker.
yeah. I'm trying to build you your damn boat. God
this is my 50th boat. I get it.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say that, I have a fair amount. I'm definitely the stereotypical, like, I get into a game and I turn into a different human being in a game environment, and people are very shocked by that. I will acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. I am Nego Mimo. I have a moustache. I am the worst timeline. But yeah, Ori and the Blind Forest for shoresies.
Well, I'm gonna
all right, Luke.
I'm gonna dive back to some old stuff. Well, one in particular. So when I was much younger and sort of playing games on the original NES, there was a lot of really hard games. Like we're talking about games like Battletoads and Snake Rattle and Roll, and the original Adventure Island, and they're all super hard and punished you sort of with putting you back to the beginning of the game if you couldn't get past particular points. But there was one game in particular that just made me rage so freaking hard, and I don't know why this one was special, but all I know is that I've got a personal history of love and hate with this particular one, and that is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Because holy shit, that is a hard game. I don't know if you guys have ever played this yourselves.
Nope.
No, can't say I have.
Oh my god. So
I have not had the pleasure.
It's basically like and you are basically trying to compete against a sequence of different boxes with different styles, sort of using the original Nintendo NES classic gamepad, which doesn't have a whole bunch of controls on it. It's A, B, start, select, and the directional pad. So there's not a lot to it. But this game required split fucking second timing for you to actually be successful at it. And it was real hard, guys. It was real hard. And some of the combinations and, the muscle memory you needed to build up to actually pull off, various fights against these different characters. Every character fought differently. Some of them were fairly predictable. Some of them were not. But there was a few in the lineup that were just ridiculously hard and punished you mercilessly if you missed one particular move. So Piston Honda being a good example. This is one of the later bosses that you come up against. And every single one of the fights is like a boss fight. Like, it goes on for a bit. But when you actually finally get up to fighting Mike Tyson himself, I have only successfully beaten this game once in my life, despite the fact that I've played a lot of it, because I don't know if I could physically ever do it again. Like, it is so freaking hard. And you can be in this fight for ages only to miss one moment of timing and get punished and just have to start from the beginning all over again. It is so freaking rage-inducing. I cannot even describe it. You just have to experience it for yourself. So, yeah, I
mean, this sounds like a challenge for your summer holidays.
Well, yeah, I mean, was Punch-Out on the NES Classic when that was re-released? I think it might have been, actually. So I'll have to go back and check the games list for that. But, Ollie, you know someone with a NES Classic, so you could potentially get hold of that if you chose to. So, it's worth a
I
look.
do like being angry.
Yeah, look,
It's true.
For history's sake, I reckon it's actually worth checking out for anyone who's not played it before, because it's a special kind of game. So, now the other two are not quite the same reason. Not so much for difficulty's sake, but just more because of things that really shat me off about these two games. The next one's XCOM 2. Now, I didn't play a whole bunch of the original XCOM, so I suspect this may be the same case for that game as well. But there is one thing about XCOM 2 that just shat me off so hard every time I played it. Like, I love the game.
I'm curious.
Don't get me wrong. But one aspect really set me on tilt, and that is when you have situations where it actually shows you the odds of succeeding at particular shots that you take in that game. Mm-hmm. And you could be in positions where you have like a 98, 99% chance of hitting with a particular shot. You take the shot, and then you miss, and then you think to yourself, fucking game lied to me. Motherfucking game lied to me. It's just so rage-inducing.
So you hate it because of the RNG?
I hate it. Well, but it wasn't RNG. Like, and don't get me wrong. Like, it's not punishing in the way. Look, okay. Here's my theory on it. Why it's not. I actually think that it is a finely coded algorithm that sort of predetermines these numbers and they don't change. And the reason why that is because if you save scum in this game, like if you sort of save, take a shot, go back to your save and try that shot again. If you don't change anything about the layup of that shot, like the positioning, the sequence in which you take it, like which order of guys you activate first before you get to the one you're going to take the shot with, you take the shot, you get the exact same result every time. So I don't think it's actually rolling the dice each time you make that shot. I think it's actually predetermined at some point earlier in the turn. And if you don't change any variables to sort of upset that, it will be the exact same result every time. So try and test that yourself if you ever play it again. But it just...
Well, I will, because there's the expansion out.
Well, true, yeah. You can check that out, the War of the Chosen expansion. That looks really good, by the way. But yeah, it pissed me off that the odds that it showed you on screen never seemed to be accurate. And it seemed like it was totally tricking you into thinking that things were a lot more likely than they actually were. So anyway, that's just the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Luke, while you were saying that, I did some quick Googling.
Sure.
So it is a deliberate system to stop you save scumming.
Okay. There you go. Yep. That makes sense.
So it is still RNG, but it's a deliberate system put in place to stop save scumming. So you could be like, I have this 10% chance shot. I'll save beforehand. Reload. Again.
Just do that, yeah. Well, I don't know that it actually stops it. I think it just makes you more creative with it. So, you save scum, and instead of shooting with A, B, and then C, without moving their positions, you'll go B, A, and then C to change up the order and force different sort of chances of those shots. So you just get more creative with it, essentially. Anyway, the third game, and this is for pretty straightforward reasons, is the Telltale Batman game. And the reason why I raged so hard when I played this game is because it was really, really good, and the game was busted as hell. And I was real angry about that. So
yeah, you were not a happy man.
Oh man, I was, if I was playing it with a controller, I would have thrown the controller against the wall. That's how shat off I was at the time. So And I was very, very angry about the fact that Telltale did not actually do anything to address the problem that I could see during the course of time that I was playing it. So that was kind of like an anger against the developer for the products, working for everybody else except for me. And I didn't understand why. Because I tried it on 2 different computers with 2 different graphics cards, and the same friggin' thing happened, even though, 99% of all the other players out there seem to have no issue. But that really shat me. So that was a gamer rage moment for sure. It's effectively put me off playing Telltale games at the moment. So I haven't actually picked up one since then. So there you go. That sets me off.
Seems fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, look, there's other Telltale games I would like to play, but I don't want to ever come into that sort of situation again because it ceases to be fun when you get that angry. It's not the experience I want, basically. Yeah. But I don't generally get angry. I'm a pretty mellow guy. I tend to make people angry. That's my thing.
Thanks.
Yeah. Not consciously. I just, I seem to have a talent.
That makes it worse, not better.
No. But look, I think at the end of the day, when we're talking about gamer rage, that could almost apply to any situation involving other human beings that, have a different idea of what fun is than you. And I mean, Overwatch is probably a good example, like the Overwatch competitive scene where we've come up against... GTA, dealing with hackers, all that sort of stuff.
My bad on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, gamer rage, it's a strange beast, that one. And I think that, I don't know, as I get older, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I find that I experience it a lot less than I once did. There's a few things that'll still always set it off. Yeah. Few things. Anyway, well, that is pretty much a show. So thanks both for
done and dusted,
for hopping on and doing the thing, even though you got birthday stuff to do. Well, I guess, Ollie, you're tomorrow night. You've got a date night lined up with your missus, don't you, to do the thing? But, did either of you sort of get anything? I mean, Ollie, you may not know yet, but have you sort of...
Don't know yet.
Spoiler alert.
Imogen, did you get anything today?
I have no idea.
Gaming related as presents or anything like that, or...
Oh, Jam bought me a copy of Tooth and Tail for my birthday.
Oh, nice.
That is my game. Yeah, she also bought me Hand Simulator because I was like, I'm not fucking playing that game. That looks stupid. And so she bought it for me.
Nice.
So thanks, Jam, for my birthday present.
Nice. I don't tend to get sort of gaming presents these days because it's one of the unfortunate side effects of doing something like talking on a gaming podcast every week is people assume that you're going to have everything that they would consider buying you and they don't actually buy you anything gaming related because they're worried about it. So I don't know if you've experienced that. It's certainly a problem that I have. I don't know. People give me cash and vouchers. That usually works out well anyway. But there you go.
I usually end up with board games rather than video games, to be fair.
True. Mm-hmm. Yep. We'll be giving ourselves plenty of those sorts of presents in another... How many days is it now, Imogen, till PAX?
Oh, God. Panic.
Too many.
36, 37?
Yeah, too many.
Something like
36 or something like that, yeah.
Yep. Coming up real soon. It's going to be good. All right, well... Anyway, looking ahead to PAX and other things, what do you guys got on the list this week for playing? So, Ollie, you're about to hit holiday mode as far as work's concerned. What have you got on your slate? What are you attacking?
Oh, God. I have to play What Remains of Edith Finch.
Mm-hmm.
Please
Otherwise,
do.
Mimo will kill me.
That's rage-inducing. Fucking play the game. It's great.
I didn't have time. I had stuff and things and GTA. Apart from that, I don't know. We'll see how we go. Like, because you guys are all off Destinying, that gives me a lot of time to play. Maybe try out some single-player games that I don't normally get the chance to play.
To be fair, you pulled us away from the Destiny sort of pit a few times in this last week, and we've
That's
caught up with you.
because you can just imagine my sad puppy dog eyes with me
I was
playing
gonna say,
PUBG solo over and
the
over
WhatsApp
again.
conveyed sad face. If you guys could tear yourself away from the PlayStation for 5 seconds, do you guys want to play games? Hi, friends.
Remember there's games on this box that sits on your
if
desk?
anyone wants to play something that's not Destiny. Sad face emoji. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, my PUBG game has lifted a lot as a result of you guys playing Destiny.
Yeah. It's true. Not having to play with us. Yeah.
look,
it's all that sweet solo play.
I could understand how anyone's PUBG game would improve without me being involved in it, but that's another whole thing altogether.
Well, maybe that should be a whole topic just by itself.
No, let's not do that.
Maybe that should be an intervention, not a topic.
I'm kind of glad, in a certain respect, that Jam wasn't on tonight, because I would have gotten raked over the coals for some of the shit that I've put her through the last week.
It was noted that both last week and this week you did not bring up the fact that we played PUBG.
Oh,
so.
It wasn't because of that. But, oh man, she
Sure.
gave me a talking to the other night. Let me tell you, it was a thing. It was a scheduled thing.
I think you deserved that.
Oh, absolutely.
You totally deserved that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll leave it for now. It is a wrap, and thank you everybody for listening. As per usual, you can get us on all the usual social media spots. So mail@partyloaded.com. We're on Facebook, of course, at facebook.com/partyloaded. At Partyloaded Show on Twitter. You can find our latest content on YouTube at youtube.com/channel Endgame. I do have some footage from our hand simulated game that I'm going to try and patch together this week and have some laughs at that, because there was some quality moments in there. It was good 20 or so minutes of us acting real stupid.
Losing our shit.
It was good.
I did some stupid shit. I'm going to need to vet some of that.
I'll let you look at it first.
I might have to cut out large sections.
Yeah, I'll let you look at it
large sections
first.
of Imogen being entirely inappropriate for the internet.
Oh, look, I don't think it was anything outside of the usual, even for Jam. But yeah, you can vet the content first before we put that up. That's definitely okay.
YouTube is forever, man.
Yeah. Anyway, we are forever too, so we will see you all again next week. Thanks for listening, and have a good evening. We will see you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye, friends.
Ta-ra.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.